My name is Marcus Webb, I'm 28, and if you're hearing this, I need you to remember one thing more than anything else: they flash on those signs over the road. When the highway lights move, do not follow them. I didn't know there were rules on the interstate until I took a job with Highway Incident Response last winter. The kind of gig where you live in a black hoodie with a faded logo under a reflective vest, dark jeans, steel-toe boots, and a radio glued to your hip, while you crawl up and down a forgotten stretch of asphalt in the middle of nowhere. My stretch is I-37 between mile 104 and mile 173. 40-odd miles of two-lane concrete pinned between pine forest and scrub hills. No towns, no exits, no gas, just the occasional rest area and a lot of dark. I took the job because my last one, night tech at a regional dispatch center, burned me out and driving felt simpler. Respond to wrecks, change tires, clear debris, call state troopers when things got ugly, and stare at the empty road the rest of the time. The state pays better than warehouse work, and I like being alone. Or I did. Orientation was at a dot building that smelled like coffee and paper and old fluorescent tubes. A tired guy named Ellis walked me through the protocols: how to deploy flares, how to set up cones, what to say on the radio. Then he handed me a laminated sheet that looked newer than everything else in the binder and said, "These are the special guidelines for the 104-173 segment. We don't talk about these on paper more than we have to, so pay attention." The sheet had a seal at the top I didn't recognize, DHS with a smaller logo under it, 3 letters, AEG. It wasn't for public distribution. Under no circumstance follow unidentified illumination off the marked roadway, it said. Do not approach single stationary headlights facing away from road. Do not exit vehicle in response to audible stimuli outside field of view. If highway lighting appears to move laterally, reduce speed, stop in place, and wait for normalization. Report all anomalies to operations. At the bottom was a phrase in bold red: Project Midway, active. Containment status, stable. I snorted when I read moving lighting. What, like the poles get up and walk? I asked. Ellis didn't laugh. You ever notice how this stretch doesn't have billboards? He said. No towns, no exits, no sodium vapor glare from truck stops, just our infrastructure. Poles, signs, cameras. We control the only light for 50 miles in either direction. That's not an accident. He took the sheet back before I could photograph it. Most of the time, it's weather and fatigue. People see what they want to see in the dark. But if you ever see the overhead sliding sideways or a dead-end road lit up like a runway where there shouldn't be one, you call us. You don't go over to check it out, and you sure as hell don't follow it. Follow what? I asked. The lure, he said, like that explained anything. We've had enough trucks vanish into the trees to know it's not just bad engineering. I thought he was messing with me. Some local ghost story turned into unofficial policy. But there was something in his eyes, a tired seriousness that stuck with me. I shrugged it off, took my keys, and 2 nights later I was out there in my marked response truck heading south, the green exit signs flashing past, the overhead-led highway lights turning the white lines into a silver ribbon. After midnight, I was usually the only vehicle out there. The sky over our part of the world doesn't glow orange like it does near cities. It's just black on black, broken by stars, and the occasional red blink of a radio tower way off in the hills. The first month went fast. Flat tires, a couple of drunk drivers asleep on the shoulder, one overturned pickup that looked like every other wreck I'd seen in 5 years of night work. Nothing supernatural, nothing that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up beyond the usual adrenaline. The weirdness started with a phone vibration and a sound I'd only ever heard in tests. It was a Tuesday in March, cold enough that the air felt clean. I was parked in the wide center median at mile 143, eating a gas station sandwich, listening to dispatch chatter about a closure 2 counties over. The highway lights hummed overhead, white and steady, a long spine of illumination straight down the interstate. My phone was in its dash mount dark, because policy says personal devices off when you're moving, but I figured parked was fine. At 0117 it screamed. That three-tone emergency alert system shriek came through the speaker so loud I dropped half my sandwich into my lap. I grabbed the phone, expecting the usual flash flood or amber alert, and saw a red banner instead of the regular yellow. Origin, DHS Black, it said. Priority, localized. Then the text populated, one line at a time, like it was being typed from somewhere far above my pay grade. Emergency alert. All drivers on I-37 between mile 104-173 reduce speed and stop in your lane. Do not exit vehicle. Do not follow unmarked light sources. Do not take exit RAMPS. Expect false route signaling. Trust only static highway lighting. Under no circumstance engage with individuals flagging you down. Project Midway status. Breach suspected. That alone would have been enough to ruin my night, but then a second line appeared at the bottom, in a smaller font that shouldn't have felt personal but did. If you are MARCUS Web, return to mile 143 and remain stationary until contact. My stomach dropped. Very funny, I muttered, looking around the empty highway like some prankster was going to pop out from behind a Jersey barrier. I hadn't reported my position to anyone in the last hour. I hadn't checked in with dispatch. The only system that knew exactly where I was the state's own GPS tracker on the truck, and apparently whoever DHS Black was. I thumbed my radio. Base, this is Webb at 143. I just got an alert, static. Just white noise, the same kind of thick, unnatural silence I'd heard once when a tower blew down in a storm. I tried the backup channel. More static. I checked the dispatch band. Nothing. For the first time since starting the job, I realized I was truly alone out here. No chatter, no truckers, just me, the concrete, the glow of the high masts, and the black trees beyond the guardrails. Then the highway lights flickered, just once like a shiver. The stretch ahead of me rippled, not the air, not heat distortion, the actual pattern of light on the pavement. The white beams that should have been straight pools under each mast seemed to smear sideways for a heartbeat, like someone had dragged their fingers across a wet painting. At mile 145, two masts flicked to red. Not emergency strobe red, not construction warning red, solid, bright, like someone had swapped the bulbs for beacons. They shouldn't be able to do that. We don't have that mode. But there they were, two perfect red circles floating over the empty road, pulsing together like eyes. The rest of the highway stayed white. The red pair winked at me, once, dimming and brightening in a slow, steady rhythm. Somewhere deep in my hoodie pocket, my phone buzzed again with the same alert, and I finally understood why they'd given us that extra laminated sheet, why Ellis had looked so damn tired when he said, "Don't follow the lure." Because out there on I-37, under a sky with no towns and no exits, the highway lights at 145 were no longer part of our grid. And whatever had turned them red was waiting to see if I would take the hint and come closer. The red lights at mile 145 pulsed in the darkness like two enormous pupils dilating at the sight of prey. And even though every protocol drilled into me said stay put, my hand drifted to the gear shift out of reflex before I caught myself. Fingers trembling, breath shallow inside the cab of the truck. The highway around me had gone dead silent. Even the wind seemed to hold itself still as if listening, waiting for me to make a mistake. And when my phone buzzed again with that same DHS Black alert, I felt a pressure in my chest like something was leaning over my shoulder reading it with me. Do not follow unmarked light sources. Do not approach red spectrum illumination. Project Midway status. Breach probable. The wording had changed, probable, not suspected, and the escalation made my throat tighten because breach implied something had containment in the first place, something big enough that the Department of Homeland Security had a color code they didn't tell the public about, something tied to the thing Ellis had called the lure. I tried the radio again out of desperation, flipping through every working frequency, but all I got was static at first, static that shifted, not constant but rising and falling like a breath, like something was trying to form words inside the noise. At one point the hiss thinned enough that I swore I heard my own voice whisper, "Marcus, look," and I dropped the mic like it had burned me. I forced myself to breathe, to slow my heartbeat, to remember the rules Ellis had given me, But the pulsing red lights ahead were hypnotic, too bright for an LED mast designed to illuminate pavement, too alive, casting a sick crimson wash across the empty asphalt that stretched for miles. And then they moved. Not flickered, not glitched, moved. The two red lights drifted sideways across the highway as smoothly as if the entire poles had uprooted themselves and were sliding across the road, crossing the center line without casting shadows from any angle that made physical sense. I squeezed my eyes shut because the one thing the laminated sheet had stressed was trust only static highway lighting, and these lights were anything but static. When I opened them again, the lights had stopped about 200 yards ahead, no longer hovering over the pavement but hanging low to the ground like something crouched just out of sight, waiting for me to look long enough to recognize its shape. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now, sweat making them slick against the steering wheel, and then the phone buzzed one more time, a new alert populating so slowly it felt deliberate. MARCUS Web, stop looking at the lights. Keep your eyes forward. Do not leave the vehicle. Help is en route. Expect false signaling. Do not respond. False signaling, yeah, no kidding. The red lights pulsed again, and something about the color suddenly shifted, like the hue deepened or the rhythm changed to mimic a heartbeat, slow and heavy, matching my own until I couldn't tell which was which. The metal of the truck vibrated faintly, a low humming tremor not from the engine but from the air around me, like the highway itself was resonating. I glanced in the side mirror and froze. Behind me, maybe a quarter-mile back, one of the overhead white highway lights flickered and then slid directly sideways off its pole, drifting into the middle of the road like a spotlight being carried by invisible hands. The motion was too smooth, too intelligent. I caught myself starting to twist in my seat to get a better look and choked down the impulse, forcing my gaze back ahead because the DHS alert made it clear. The moment you track the lights, the moment you give them attention, they respond. And they want a response. My radio crackled again, but this time it wasn't static. A voice came through, my voice, but wrong, like it was stretched thin, recorded backwards and played forward again, grainy and wet. Marcus, it's okay, come check. I found something. My stomach flipped. That wasn't a lure using my voice. It was practicing, learning, refining, the same way the things in Millwood Crossing learned voices in those old stories I used to read online at 2 in the morning. I grabbed the radio mic with a shaking hand and forced out a whisper. Bass, if you can hear me, someone is spoofing my voice on Channel 3. It's not me. Repeat, it's not. The mic went hot in my hand, a sharp crackle cutting me off as the fake voice bled through again, louder this time, clearer. Marcus, I'm hurt. I need help. Come down to 145, and that did it. I couldn't pretend anymore that this was some electrical malfunction or weird atmospheric trick. Something was down the road at mile 145, and it wanted me to follow. I shoved the truck into park, killed the lights, killed the engine, and sat there in the sudden suffocating silence, heartbeat thundering. The red lights pulsed again, and this time I heard something underneath the rhythm, faint metal clicking like claws tapping pavement. A shape flickered at the farthest edge of visibility beneath the lights, tall and narrow and wrong, with proportions that didn't fit any human silhouette. The light bent around it, distorting like heat haze around an engine. My breath hitched. I pressed myself back into the seat, trying to make myself smaller. Then another DHS alert populated on the phone, but this one came with a sound. A single sharp beep and then a human voice, flat and mechanical like a text-to-speech generator but clearer than anything my phone had ever produced. Agent Webb. Do not engage. Maintain position. Project Midway Response Team ETA, 7 minutes. Do not look at the entity. Agent. I wasn't an agent. I was a night shift highway guy who scraped wreckage off asphalt and tried not to fall asleep at 2 a.m. before hitting a deer. Why the hell would DHS call me that? Unless they weren't telling me something. Unless taking this job meant stepping into a containment role no one explained. My pulse hammered. The lights at 145 pulsed faster now, strobing rhythmically, and with each flash the shape under them looked closer, taller, unfolding like it had extra joints, extra limbs, extra angles that didn't belong on this side of geometry. The white light behind me drifted closer too, like it was hurting me forward. My truck suddenly felt too small, too fragile, like thin aluminum foil between me and something that understood how to pry things open. The pressure in the cab increased, a low vibration in my teeth and my skull like a tuning fork pressed against bone. I shut my eyes again, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. 5 seconds passed. 10. 15. Then the sound came, the one that still wakes me up sweating even now. A knock. Not on my window, not on the truck, but from under the road itself, a hollow metallic thud from deep beneath the asphalt, followed by another and another. Evenly spaced, traveling toward me from mile 145 like something huge was walking inside the ground. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't dare look this time. I knew what the next alert would say. I knew because I could feel something rising beneath the road surface toward me, tracking me by sound, by heartbeat, by attention. And when the next knock hit directly beneath my truck, rattling the entire chassis, I finally understood why Ellis had said, "This stretch doesn't need billboards." Because the only lights out here were the ones we controlled. And something else wanted to control them too. The third knock hit directly beneath the truck with enough force that the floorboards flexed under my boots. A deep, resonant impact that felt less like something striking concrete and more like something enormous brushing against a membrane, testing its strength, deciding if it should rip its way through. My entire body went rigid. I held my breath even though the protocols hadn't mentioned silence the way Millwood's did. This was different. Not about sound luring something, but about attention, about acknowledgement, about being perceived by whatever lived under the road. The air in the cab felt thick, heavy with static, and when I finally exhaled it came out shaky and ragged. The red lights at mile 145 pulsed faster now, not rhythmic anymore, erratic, excited. Like whatever controlled them knew I was trapped between moving lights behind me and the thing under the pavement. Another alert vibrated the phone. I didn't want to look, but the thought of ignoring it felt worse. The screen lit my face with sick blue-white glow in the darkness. Origin, DHS Priority 0 message, Agent Webb do not move. Entity activity surface proximal. Project Midway threat level escalated. Response team DELAYED. Maintain visual immobility. Do not acknowledge vocal signaling. Beneath the block text was a new line that hadn't been in any previous alert. Neural patterning indicates it is attempting resonance match. I had no idea what that meant, but my stomach twisted because I had the sinking feeling it meant the entity under the road was trying to synchronize something with me. Brain waves, heartbeat, attention, whatever the hell resonance it needed. The knock came again, this time slightly behind the truck like it had overshot and was correcting its position. The asphalt visibly vibrated in the mirror, ripples spreading along the edge of the shoulder like pressure waves under deep water. And then, God help me, the road bulged upward, just a little, maybe an inch. But it lifted, a slow rise of stiff concrete bending like rubber, and then it sank back flat. My breath caught in my throat. That was when I saw the file name. A second notification appeared on the lock screen, not an alert, an attachment forced onto my device without permission. Project Midway Containment Overview Classified. Below it, smaller text. Access granted for survivor continuity. Survivor, not agent, not operator. Survivor. My thumb hovered over the file. If it was malware, I didn't care. If it was a trap from the thing under the road, I didn't care. I needed answers more than I needed safety. The file unfolded into a series of dense documents, diagrams, memos with metadata scrubbed out. The first page was a dated briefing, Project Midway Anomalous EXTRAGRADINT Entity Detection Initiative. Authorization, DHS AEG Bureau of Infrastructure Stability. Discovery date, 1998 Post-Seismic Survey. Entity designation, TIPII Subsurface Lure Mechanism. Threat behavior, predatory acquisition via sensory mimicry and light modulation projection. My hands trembled as I scrolled. A grainy photograph filled the screen, highway workers in reflective jackets crouched beside a damaged section of I-37. Concrete cracked open like eggshell. Beneath it, not soil, not rock, blackness, a void. A caption underneath, initial breach event, Worker fatalities resulted from visual contact with an Euclidean lumen structure. The next page showed a diagram of a long, tubular shape curled under the interstate like some colossal burrowing animal. It had no defined anatomy, just segments of light-emitting organs and tendril-like appendages branching like roots. The text beside it read, "Entity does not possess fixed physical form. Presentation adapts to observer expectations. Requires reflective surfaces, light sources, or auditory feedback to manifest targeted lure configurations." Below that, entity seeks cognitive imprint for patterning, imitates recognizable individuals after brief exposure. The shape under the road shifted again, another bulge, then a gliding ripple moving toward the red lights at 145 like it was coordinating with them. The radio hissed to life again, but this time the voice didn't sound like me. It sounded like Ellis. "Marcus, don't look at it, stay where you are, we're coming." For half a second I nearly answered him. Nearly lifted the mic. Nearly broke the one rule that had been hammered into me. But then the voice slipped, lost cadence, lost timbre, became too smooth, too perfect, like a synthetic impression wearing a human tone. "Come closer, it's safe." I let go of the mic so fast it hit the console and swung. The document file auto-scrolled to the next section. Midway Incident 12 Report Team Loss. 4 Secondary Entity Emergence Confirmed. An image, abandoned response vehicles parked diagonally across the interstate. Doors open, engines running. Flares burned down to stubs placed in a straight line leading off the road into the tree line. The caption, "Light following behavior documented in trained personnel. Post-incident recoveries, 0. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. The red lights at 145 dimmed abruptly, then flared back to life, but not as two separate points. This time they stretched horizontally, forming a long band of red illumination across the entire road surface. Like a gate opening, like a mouth widening. Heat shimmered above the asphalt, warping the air. Something rose under the road again, this time closer, directly between my truck and the red-lit gate. A long shape, longer than a semi, longer than the width of the highway. The asphalt arched, cracked, then settled back as if something had slid along its underside. My phone chimed again. "Entity has achieved resonance contact. Do not respond to auditory signals. Do not follow light modulation. Employ visual stillness. Wait for team." The next line froze my blood. "Entity may attempt physical surface breach. Prepare for tremor displacement." A tremor hit immediately, shaking the truck sideways. Just one quick jolt, but enough to send every loose item in the cab rattling. The red gate at 145 flickered violently, as though something enormous was brushing against the lights. Then the highway lights behind me began blinking in sequence, one by one, left, right, mimicking turn signals, guiding me backward, herding me, shepherding me toward a direction I should not go. The radio hiss deepened, shifting into a low droning hum. Not static, not mimicry, communication. My name formed inside that hum, distorted and stretched. Marcus. Not a lure, not a voice. A vibration shaping itself into meaning. I slammed my hands against my ears, but sound travels through bone, through air, through thought. "Stop," I whispered. The hum paused, the red lights surged, and the road bulged directly under my front tires. That was the moment I learned something the documents didn't say. It wasn't trying to lure me anymore. It was trying to surface. The asphalt beneath my front tires swelled upward like something was inflating a massive lung under the road. And for a moment the truck tilted forward enough that my stomach floated, weightless, before the bulge deflated again with a slow, sickening collapse that made the concrete groan. The radio crackled at the exact same moment, not with a voice this time, but with a grinding, bone-on-metal rasp that sounded like 1,000 nails dragged across steel. Then, horrifyingly, it began to shape itself into something almost conversational, like the entity was learning the rhythm of human speech without understanding the meaning. "Maher, kus duun," he yelled. My entire body went rigid. I squeezed my eyes shut, but that made the vibration worse. The sound wasn't coming through my ears anymore. It was inside my head, rattling my skull like it was trying to tune some inner frequency. The phone buzzed violently in my lap, and I forced myself to look. New alert origin, AEGOPS, priority 0. Do not look at the road surface. Do not engage. Do not acknowledge cognitive contact. Response team estimated delay, unknown. The last word made dread settle deep in my gut, unknown. Whatever was happening on the highway now wasn't something they could reach in time. I scrolled down with shaking fingers. Additional directive, Agent Webb, you may need to initiate localized countermeasure. Refer to Section 7. Section 7. There was no Section 7 in the earlier file. But below that notification, a new document appeared, one that hadn't been accessible before, Project Midway, FAILSAFE protocols. It loaded to a schematic of the highway infrastructure, but not the lights, not the cameras, the drainage system. Specifically, the emergency outlet sluices beneath mile 143, the exact place I was parked. For a moment, I didn't understand. Then I saw the highlighted note beside the schematic. Entity feeds on light pattern attention engagement. Countermeasure, total blackout plus rapid hydraulic displacement. Purpose, force entity to withdraw beneath primary stratum. Effective radius, 200 meters. In other words, turn off all lights, trigger the underground flood release pipes, and blast the thing backward into whatever layer of earth it normally hides under. Except, I didn't have access to those controls, or so I thought. Beneath the diagram was a second note. Override key assigned. Agent MW Field. Device location, truck glove compartment. My eyes snapped to the glove box. No, I whispered, because I had checked that compartment a dozen times since taking this job, registration, flares, spare gloves, nothing else. But something cold washed through me when I remembered the onboarding packet. Ellis had handed me the keys and said, "Everything you need is already in the vehicle." I jerked the glove box open. A small black module sat inside wrapped in a dull plastic bag with a handwritten label. Midway override, use only if you're willing to break the road. At that exact moment, the highway lights behind me began flickering in a rapid, coordinated pattern. One pole flashing white, the next flashing red, the next white again, all strobing in a cascading sweep that raced toward my truck. A message, a command, a lure. The red band of light at mile 145 widened, stretching across the entire horizon like a wound opening. Heat shimmer distorted the air. Something tall, horrifyingly tall, began to rise into view inside the band. Not a creature, not a shape. A silhouette of negative space like a human outline but impossibly elongated, thin as wire, its limbs bending in angles that felt like violations of geometry. The concrete under my truck vibrated, then cracked. A hairline fracture snaked across the lane ahead of me, splitting suddenly into a jagged network of smaller cracks that spread in all directions. The thing was pushing again, this time harder, this time close. The radio screeched and died. The phone went black. All communication failed. The red gate at 145 pulsed violently, and with each pulse the silhouette inside grew clearer, like it was stepping closer though it wasn't moving at all. My breath hitched. If that thing broke the surface, if it breached fully, I knew instinctively that it wouldn't just take me. It wouldn't just break containment. It would spread under the entire interstate grid, latching onto every light source from here to the next state. It would learn. It would hunt. And then the silence shattered, literally, when the asphalt beneath me bowed upward again, violently this time, throwing the truck several inches off the ground. The left tires thumped back down. Right tires didn't. They hung in the air for half a second before slamming onto tilted pavement. It was surfacing right under me. A deep, resonant groan rolled through the road, a sound like concrete under unbearable tension. My choices hit me all at once, cold and brutal. Stay here, let the entity breach, die horribly, and doom the entire containment zone, or use the override and risk collapsing part of the highway, maybe burying myself alive in a man-made flood. No good choices, I whispered. Got it. I grabbed the module. It fit in my palm like it had been made for me. A sliding cover hid a red toggle switch. The label beneath read, Initiate local blackout plus hydraulic flush. Warning, field operator survival not guaranteed. The concrete popped under me like gunfire. A dent rose in the center of the lane, a long, narrow protrusion pushing upward like the tip of a spear. Then something tapped the underside of the truck's metal chassis once, twice, testing the shell. the way you knock on a door before opening it. My heartbeat slammed in my chest. If I didn't activate the failsafe now, that thing was going to peel the vehicle open like a soda can. I flipped the cover back. My thumb hovered over the switch. Then I heard a whisper faint inside the cab, my own voice. "Marcus, help me, it's dark, I'm stuck." I looked up involuntarily and immediately regretted it. The negative space silhouette inside the red gate had changed. It wasn't a tall, abstract form anymore. It was me. My exact shape, my exact build, my exact stance, down to the tilt of my head. But hollow, empty. Just an outline, a template waiting to be filled. Something cold spilled through my chest. It was building a pattern, a replacement. And if it did, I'd vanish into the dark under the road just like the others the documents hinted at. The pavement groaned. A long crack tore open under my front bumper. Just an inch, but enough that steam hissed up from below, warm and wet and smelling faintly metallic. That was it. No more thinking. I slammed the switch. Every light on the highway went out instantly. Total blackout. The world went dark except for the faint red glow bleeding from the creature at 145. And then, deep below, the hydraulics screamed to life. A roar like a dam breaking thundered up through the ground. Water, tremendous pressure, flooded the subsurface channels beneath the road. The entity reacted instantly. The bulge under my truck dropped away as though something massive had been yanked downward. The red silhouette distorted, convulsed, flickered violently. The red lights collapsed inward like dying suns, and then something screamed beneath the concrete. Not human, not animal, something old, furious, dragged backward into depths it didn't want to return to. The truck lurched. The asphalt subsided. The scream faded, and the entire highway fell silent. I didn't know yet whether I had saved myself or only bought time. 6 months have passed since the night the highway screamed beneath me, and I still flinch every time a streetlight flickers. People think PTSD comes from the big moments. Gunshots, blood, car crashes. But nobody talks about what it does to you when the world itself changes shape around you. When the lights over a highway start moving like living things. When the ground you're standing on feels like it's breathing. I left Highway Incident Response the same week the containment team finally reached me. They showed up just before dawn, 7 men in black DHS AEG gear with no visible rank markings, moving with the kind of silence that tells you they're used to cleaning up nightmares. They scanned me for resonance contamination, whatever that meant, took the override module from my truck and instructed me to hand over my phone, radio, even my reflective vest. The whole time they barely looked at me. Not out of disrespect, out of caution, out of fear. They recovered the section of highway around mile 143, sealed off a 2-mile radius with unmarked trucks, and installed a new grid of reinforced lighting that wasn't LED anymore, arc lamps with shielding around the base, the kind they use in controlled environments. One of the agents told me, very quietly, "Your countermeasure forced it deeper than it's gone since 2007. You bought us containment time, maybe months, maybe years." But he never said it was gone. They never say that. They don't believe things like that ever go away, they only retreat. I tried going back to normal life, but normal doesn't really exist after something learns your shape. I still work nights, habit I guess. Only now it's in a small mechanic shop outside of Coyote Bend. I keep the lights on bright, fluorescent tubes buzzing overhead like a protective shield, and I pretend to focus on oil changes and tire rotations. But every time a customer walks in and stands just a little too still, or I hear tapping on the metal garage door when no one should be outside, my heart spikes like I'm back on mile 143 again. And every night without fail at exactly 1:17 a.m., the time of the first alert, my phone buzzes. Not a full EAS alert anymore, just a single vibration. No sender, no message, no logged notification afterward. The containment agent told me, residual resonance sometimes echoes. Ignore it. But I know what it is. It's the same thing you know when you're walking alone and feel like something is behind you but you don't hear footsteps. It's not the absence of sound, it's the pressure of attention. The first real sign something was wrong came 2 months after the breach. I was driving home on a back road. No highways, no interstates, just a farm route through open desert. and as I rounded a shallow turn, I saw a single highway mast light in the field about 30 yards off the road, just standing there, perfectly upright, lit. But there was no pole, no power lines, just the light itself, glowing like someone hung it from the sky with invisible wire. I killed my truck's engine immediately and sat there, breathing through my teeth. The light pulsed once. Then it shifted 3 feet to the left. Not blinked, not flickered, moved. I drove away so fast I nearly rolled the truck. The second sign was worse. I started hearing myself again. Not in mirrors, not in dreams, in reflections that didn't belong. Once in the chrome bumper of a customer's SUV. I bent down to check for a VIN plate and my reflection didn't bend with me. It just stood there, head tilted, like it was studying me, like it was waiting. Another time in the window of the shop office. I was locking up for the night, dark hoodie pulled tight against the cold, steel-toe boots echoing on concrete, and when I glanced at the glass I saw myself standing a foot behind me, but I was alone in the room. I turned around, fast enough to give myself whiplash. Nothing there. When I looked back at the window, the reflection was normal again. But the shape of the hood was wrong. Not mine. Slightly narrower, like a guess that wasn't perfect yet. The containment agency calls them pattern echoes, residual imprints left after close exposure to an entity that uses mimicry as a hunting mechanism. They fade, the agent told me over a secure line. Stay away from major lighting structures. Do not travel alone at night on unmonitored roads. If you see modulation, do not engage. But the worst sign came 3 weeks ago. I was driving home, a different route this time, avoiding anything with pavement markings, when a message appeared on my dashboard display. Not my phone, my truck. A text that should have been impossible because the system isn't even connected to a network. One new alert. Origin unknown. My hands went cold. The message opened itself. Hello, Marcus. Are you still in the dark? I slammed the brakes so hard the truck skidded. I yanked the keys out hard in my throat, but the display stayed on because it wasn't coming from the truck's power system. The text faded. A new one replaced it. You left the highway. I never stopped following you. My breath froze in my lungs. The cabin lights flickered. Then I saw it through the rear window, a white light, floating in the dark field behind me, exactly centered with my truck, not cast by anything, just suspended there like an eye. My phone buzzed. 1:17 a.m. No message. No alert. Just that familiar vibration. When I looked back up, the light had moved closer, 10 yards, then 5. I didn't stick around to see the last yard. I threw the truck into gear and tore out of there, gravel exploding from under the tires. The light didn't chase me, not directly. It just blinked out, like it wanted me to know it could follow if it wanted to. Tonight is the real reason I'm writing this, because tonight something new happened. I woke up from a dead sleep to tapping on my bedroom wall. Slow, even, patient. I sat up in bed, skin crawling, every instinct screaming that tapping should not come from an internal wall. There's nothing on the other side but another room. But the tapping continued. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, pause. I reached for my phone with shaking hands. 1:17 a.m. A text appeared on the lock screen, not an emergency alert, just a message, no number, no contact. I know you remember the sound. USHOULD. You heard it under the road. My breath hitched. Another message appeared instantly. I have your pattern now. You can run the roads, I will run the light. The tapping stopped. And then, God help me, I saw something glow under the door. Not a bright glow, not a flashlight. A horizontal band of red, like the gate at mile 145. Like something standing outside my room had brought its own illumination with it. I didn't get out of bed. I didn't look. I didn't move. The strip of red light stayed under the door for nearly a minute before it faded away. No footsteps, no sound, just disappearance. So now I'm sitting here typing this, wearing the same black hoodie I wore that night, the same jeans, the same steel-toe boots I keep beside the bed because I don't feel safe without them. The containment team told me the flush would force it deeper. They told me I bought time. They didn't tell me what happens when something burrows deeper into the earth and follows the grid underground, reaching new lights, new roads, new places where human attention flows every night. They didn't tell me that once an entity learns your shape, it doesn't unlearn it. It waits for resonance. It waits for darkness. It waits for you. And tonight when my phone buzzed again, 1:17, as always, a new message appeared. 4 words, a promise, a warning, a location. Next incident, Coyote Bend. Which means I'm not the target anymore. I'm the witness, or maybe the lure. So if you're on the road tonight and you see lights shift in ways they should, if a turn signal flashes where there isn't a vehicle, if a band of red illumination forms across the asphalt like a line you're meant to cross, keep driving. Keep your eyes forward. And for God's sake, don't follow the lights.